phase 2 is starting on the 996 turbo. I've been doing some of this, so we're gonna catch you up to what I've done, and then we're gonna continue on with the rest of what phase 2 is. And our goal right now is to actually have it done in less than a week. That way he can go to the Muscleman track day with me and everyone else and go have some fun. So yeah, this was one of the things. So we put the exhaust on, and the exhaust, the tips for it looks like it was kind of an afterthought. Like they made everything and they're like, oh yeah, that's great. And then they, oh shit, we need to put something on for the exhaust to exit the car. So this is what came with the exhaust. It's like 2 1/8 inch hole. Kind of hard to believe that 500 horsepower comes out of that. He was like, I don't like that. Can you make something better? And I said, yes. And so I spent some time and I made this one. So I'm gonna make another one for the other side, but I feel that fits the 996 turbo shape and everything a little better than what was on there, what came with it. So all I have to do is make another one, which they're not easy. A lot of pie cuts, but oh well. I gotta put on a rear tow hook, and we're gonna do something about these holes back here. We have an idea for the wing, but that's not until phase 3. And then in the end of our last video, you saw me put on a Works Bell steering wheel and paddle shifter kit. It was nice and everything, except for the paddle shifters that came with it. This is the paddle shifter that came with the Works Bell kit. And essentially the back of it, where you had to get your fingers on there, 1 was really far away from the steering wheel, and 2 was probably a 1/4 inch or less off of one of the stocks for the steering column. So I made this paddle shifter, which now has almost 2 inches of gap back there. And you can still get your hand behind it. We might move it back a tiny bit, but that feels way better than what came with the kit. I did tell him that it wasn't gonna be carbon fiber because I don't know how to do that stuff. So he didn't care, and we just have it finished on the silver for the metal. But I have the other one, it's down here on the floor. I gotta put it on, but we're gonna make sure that the gap away from the steering wheel, because he wants to be able to get his fingers back there without touching it, because you don't drive a race car at the limit with not your entire hand around the steering wheel. So we might space them back a tiny bit. And then the roll cage or the roll bars here, there's a few other little things that we gotta do. We're gonna line up some panels or some door, fenders in the doors and stuff like that a little better. But this one's not as in-depth as the first phase. But phase 3 will be a little bit more, because we are making a wing with the rear trunk. You'll see how we do that. I still don't know how we're gonna do that. So we'll find out together. But yeah, I'm gonna get started on finishing the exhaust, and then we're gonna tear out, well, what's left of the interior. There's not much in there right now. And we're gonna put the roll bar in, and then we're gonna continue with this, and he should be out there racing with me next Saturday at Muscleman and breaking in phase 2. Well, I tell you what, never buy a steel blade for stainless steel. Sure, oh, well, that was the only blade they had. I was like, fuck it, shouldn't be too bad. It's completely spent, and all I did was make that tip and get barely through cutting enough for the other tip. I made some new exhaust tips for it. The V-bands are slightly smaller than 3 inch, but I can't change the V-band size on the other side, so I just reuse that. And then we have a better looking tip on the outside. We're going to trim it so that it fits better with the bumper. Oh yeah, these are...
I don't really get what the problem was.
Yeah, that was...
I think these are way nicer.
That was what it was.
I mean, if I owned this car, and
you wouldn't have bought that.
And I spent $80,000 on this car, I wouldn't want this bullshit toy tips on my car. I want this.
If someone else made these, he'd be like, these are dope. But I made them. And then I also was the, what's it called? Paddle shifters. So we put those on last time. We didn't really get a good view of it, but these are the paddle shifters from Works Bell, and carbon fiber, all that stuff. But if I put this back here where it would have been, you can see how much further back it is. And then actually on the bottom side where it was sitting, it was almost touching this stock. So I made these, and I might make little spacers or even get some little washers to try and space this back a little bit. But he's only, the owner of this car, he's only worried about it interfering with his glove or him, fighting with it there. So spacing it back a tiny bit is better than having no adjustment at all with this. It was probably 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch off of this, which getting your finger back, and he said that he was turning these on and shit while he was driving. It just wasn't beneficial. So I went and made mine, which this one would go on this side. And they're just out of regular metal. They're small, whatnot, and it does give a nice click to it. I know you saw the horn button, but with the paddle shift adapter, the horn button actually can't click on. So, oh well, it's just there. That way there's not an ugly hole of wires. Now, we have that box, which is a Titan Motorsports roll bar for this car. So I'm gonna be putting that in. And then we have new radiators for the front. I know the last video we did the center radiator. They didn't actually have the 2 outside radiators available at the time. So we got those, a few other little tidbits here and there. And then I'm also going to be making a splitter for it this week. So that will be interesting because there aren't any out there. And if you say there are, it's just a lip. I've looked. They don't have a splitter. So a real splitter. They have a lip splitter. So we're going to be making one, and I have to make mounts for that and all that stuff. So that'll be one of the last things we do, just because there's a lot of thinking time. And well, it's an old joke, but we don't charge for thinking time. So I want to finish everything else first. I love that there's bubble wrap, because honestly, anything this fell on, it was probably going to hurt. Yeah, no, we could save this and ship like 800 things. I mean, granted, I hate it because of how hard it is to take apart, but those trash bags with spray foam would have been better.
Yeah.
Just they would have been. Where is hardware? Unplug his seats, and seats come out. Well, it's been fun, but not really. So getting roll bars and stuff like that to fit. I mean, granted, I had to try to use the what's it called, the strap to pull it in and whatnot and get it to line up with the bolts. They're supposed to hold the car out in the way that it wants to, where it should be. I don't really think that the issue I had with having to pull it is because it's been hit. It's just, even with the last one we put in, I had to do some fighting to get all the holes to line up. The only difference with this one than the one that I put in was the one that I put in had to be welded in down here. So we had the carpet out and we welded in the little plates and stuff. And then it had an extra hole that bolted through here so that it not only bolted to the top of the strut, but it bolted through the actual strut tower. Not saying that this one is worse, It's just that the other one had more rigidity points. And I have an idea of where the front's supposed to go, but I don't want to say anything in case I'm wrong. So we're gonna get it all matched up, but I wanted to have the rear in because it's the hardest thing to do, where we have to match this up with the bolt holes on the car. And there's a lot more bolt holes, where the front, I think it only has 2 bolt holes that hold the front in. This one is supposed to be a replica, I think, of the GT3 roll bar. So, which is also why it's kind of, you know, easier to put in than the other one that I put in. Should still, you know, protect in a rollover, which is the whole goal. I just think that with this one, because of how it is, I think we're going to actually be able to use the stock seatbelt harnesses, which makes sense because the GT3 uses stock seatbelt harnesses in order for it to pass safety regulations. You would think with how this looks, it'll just slot together, but no, it's very, very firm. And I have this side started and it's starting to pull together, but I want to leave it loose. That way I can get the other side, and I'm going to show you how I did it. I threw a microfiber over it so that I don't gouge it. And then I grab very large channel locks and just squeeze it together, which is great because it actually makes a wonderful noise. I don't know if you can hear that crunching, but it did it on the other side. And the other thing too is, now that it's like that, it's also off one way. So I have to crunch it to the side. And I mean, it's stout. I'm sure this won't come apart in an accident, but crunchy, crunchy. But it's definitely not 100% straight. Actually, this side looks like it's pulled together more than the other side. There we go. All right, to catch you up, we replaced the radiators. You've seen us do many things with the radiators before, same process, so you can look at previous videos. They're definitely better because they're aluminum and so on and so forth, and slightly bigger than the stock ones. Oh, go look at the front radiator. There is a lot of bugs in there, and if you look at it, or if you go to one of our older videos, you can actually see that that radiator is very new. I want to say it might have like 1,500 miles at most on it, and it's covered in bug guts. So cleaning these radiators is just a job. It's just like changing your oil, apparently. Right now, I'm trying to put the MyLapse transponder on. And so I was looking at everything. I was trying to get an idea of where I wanted to put it. And I was looking in this area, but I've decided that I don't want to put it next to the radiator. It says that it works up to 122 degrees, which we're in Arizona. It's going to get that hot. So keeping it away from the radiator will be better. And then I'm kind of thinking about just putting it under here somewhere. And granted, it has this mount for zip tying it on, so it's meant to do that. But I want to try to make sure that there isn't metal underneath it, because I haven't read anything in the instructions that say to not put it over metal. But the less we do, the better it'll pick up. And then running this to a key-on power source, that's the next thing. But getting this mounted is really the most important thing. I was going to do it here, but I don't really like that anymore. We're also going over and fixing panel gaps around the front end of this car, which technically three ways of why the panel gaps went messed up. One is because we rolled the fenders, likely. Another one is jumping curbs and stuff on the racetrack, also likely. And the third one is both of those combined. Probably one of those three options for sure. But we're lining everything up, making it look better, and hopefully they don't move around again. And we're also adjusting the doors so they weren't 100% straight. but they're getting closer.
We're expediting this process, dude.
Oh, hey, I was wondering if you guys were still making videos.
Yeah, that's sort of the base.
All right, we're having a busy week this week. It's actually been this way for like a month and a half now. So, but back to the Porsche. I got the exhaust all done and all like, trimmed and all that other stuff. So these are the new tips, which I think are much better than the original ones as we showed in the beginning. As for the stuff that we did on this thing, new sway bars front and rear. We put sway bar end links, the aftermarket style ones, right in here. The rear one actually has 4 adjustments and the front one has 5 adjustments. So we're gonna have to play with that, how they feel. We did another tranny flush because he wanted to make sure everything was nice and clean because these transmissions are expensive. So as long as they're good, we're happy. The front sway bar, we did a decent amount of stuff up here for the suspension right now. The front sway bar's up here. It's all nice and tucked in and all that stuff. Actually, I'm gonna go grab them, but the end links for this sway bar, you can see how long they are. And what I put on last time were these ones, because these are what he brought me. And I didn't know that these aren't for the turbo. These are for the non-turbo cars. And so that's this bar's full extension. And that's this bar being almost fully collapsed. So there's a huge length difference. And I guess he told the company what happened. And he was like, yeah, it's on my turbo right now. And they were like, how? And I was like, I tried, it worked. We did some track days with it. Oh well. These here are GT2 style brake ducts. On the other Porsche that we work on, we've put GT3 style brake ducts on. These ones are definitely way more aggressive than the GT3 style. And then new radiators. We did the outside radiators where last time we did the inside, the center radiator. So you can kind of see the nice and shiny there. Of course, we spent a lot of time doing the front end. We're guessing that, like I said before, it was the rolling of the fenders, tracking it, so on and so forth. But now the front end is nice and perfect, and we have a decent starting point where we know it's perfect. And so if anything happens in the future, we know tracking is definitely doing it. Another thing that I had to swap out that we put on last time was the extended studs. Whereas I have a new one here. So this is the ones that I put on last time, and this is the ones I put on this time. And the only reason we swapped these out is because we're running bigger what are they called? Spacers. Bigger spacers in the rear. The same spacers in the front, but we wanted to have more poke out in the rear with the tires that he got. And it's funny that we wanted to put spacers to move the tires out because he's on 315s right now. And I think they're 11 or 12 inch wide tires. They're huge, or wheels, I mean. Other than that, we're pretty much wrapping up. So we finally got the things that we were waiting on for the roll bar. The bolts I could have gotten an Ace. These I could not have gotten an Ace. Titan was, they answered, they did everything. We got everything taken care of. So even though Titan Motorsports, or we couldn't find these in the box, I don't know if Titan didn't put them in there, but they took care of us and we got them really quick, and we got them before we needed the car to leave. So that's all good. Other than that, I think that's going to be it. I was going to do the splitter. Time constraints and stuff like that happen, and then I have some different ideas for the splitter, so that'll be later. And then we're also going to be doing the rear wing. So we want to do a GT style wing, And we might not be doing it with the trunk lid because I have a friend in town who makes carbon fiber parts. And so I'm gonna see if he can make one. And he's really good. So he's not like just some random Joe Schmo. He's my random Joe Schmo. So he's really good. We're gonna do that. And then hopefully some tracking later in the year. But he is, the owner of this car is piecing out from Arizona for the summer, which can't blame him.